Hello, welcome everyone. Okay, so I am on here a little early today because I'm going to be in a conference later. So I will repost this at 9 o'clock. So those of you who are used to seeing me at 9, I will still be reposted for you. Anyway, so tonight I want to just continue the discussion on parenting. And I want to just quickly give you 7 principles that help for effective parenting, right? So 7 principles for effective parenting. As I mentioned before, we were never given a rule book, when we had our first child, second child, third child, however many children you have, right? It's kind of a trial and error or guessing game. It can be something that we seek advice on and wisdom and counsel from those who have gone before us, but certainly something that we find can be very difficult to navigate well. And we can also find that one child is not like the other, right? So then the game switches all over again. When you think you figured something out, it doesn't work for the other child. So I think across the board, no matter what your culture is, your family values, the legacy, whatever it is that you find important in your family dynamic in your home, I think these 7 principles certainly can go across the board for everybody. So I wanted to share them with you. It comes from Focus on the Family. It's a resource that I think is wonderful. It is incredibly helpful with giving advice and wisdom on parenting, marriage, everything encompassing family. So certainly a wonderful resource. So I want to be able to share this with you, okay? So the 7 principles are love, respect, boundaries, grace and forgiveness, gratitude, adaptability, and intentionality, okay? So I'll say it again. Love, respect, boundaries, grace and forgiveness, gratitude, adaptability, and intentionality. So those are the 7 principles that if we were to implement, we would be very effective in our parenting. So just to briefly go over them, with love, obviously people would think like, okay, of course, we know what love is, right? Children need love. They need to be poured into. We all need love. All of us have a need of love, to feel loved, to be loved, to feel that it is something that is of value for who we are. So love includes all of the sacrifice, the self-control, the attention, instruction, correction, right? A lot of times people feel like discipline isn't loving, but honestly, discipline is loving, right? When you were disciplining a child in whatever way you see fit, however that discipline is within obviously healthy boundaries, you are trying to correct something that you see is flawed in your child, whether it's the complaining, the whining, the bad attitude, the talking back, the disrespect, whatever it may be. You want to correct that in your child so that they can grow to be positive, encouraging, loving, respectful human beings. So when you discipline, it's because you love your child and you want them to be the best that they can. So you have to remember that love encompasses all of that. It's the respect, it's the self-control, right? When you are loving someone, you need to be able to restrain yourself and not to lose your temper, lose your control. So when we're parenting, we have to remember that when we are trying to love on our children and pour into our children. We have to also think about letting our kids be kids and to have fun with them, right? I think sometimes there can be an extreme where we are expecting, our 5-year-old to act like a 10-year-old, right? I know within the school systems a lot of times that, when I was in kindergarten, all we did was nap time, snack time, and playtime. The things that we did in kindergarten is now kind of preschool or even pre-preschool, right? And the kids nowadays that are in kindergarten are doing things that 1st and 2nd grade did years ago. The expectations have just grown and grown and grown and gotten, younger and younger and younger. So like these children are expected to do so much more than when I was a kid, when my parents were kids, when my grandparents were surely kids, right? So I think that sometimes we lose sight that children just need to be children. They need to have fun. You need to laugh and to play with them and to just love them at where they're at developmentally and their age. So just pour into them and to show them that love. Okay, second is the respect. Of course, everyone deserves respect and value, whether you're 2 years old, 10 years old, 16 years old, 25 years old, 50, 70, 90, right? Everybody deserves respect to be given and to be shown. We have to realize that, we all have value, and our children especially, they need to see that they need to be respected. We're demanding respect, right? So we need to offer that respect, to show them respect in the way that they bring something to the table in your family. This is kind of what grew me into doing the family meeting. I talked about that last time. There's a blog post about it for those of you who missed it. But to do the family meeting, I wanted my kids to know that they had a voice. And it was important for them to know that I respected their opinion and, what they can bring to the family dynamic. And to also just, remember that showing respect is through words of encouragement, loving encouragement, responding instead of reacting, right? To have that self-control, to just respond rather than react. That's showing respect as well. Boundaries. Boundaries are so important, and I think a lot of times we fail to even think about these or address them, or maybe implement them without doing it in an effective way. But boundaries are so important that we allow our children to know, yes, kids can be kids, we can play with you, we can have fun with you, we're going to respect you as a part of this family, but also there's a boundary that we're the parent, they're the child, right? I think a lot of times too early we're doing, where it's friend, like, hey, I'm your friend, I'm your buddy, right? And I think sometimes that blurs a really big boundary that needs to be there to help encourage an effective parent, to help encourage your child to grow in a healthy environment, where there definitely needs to be the boundary that you are the teacher and the guide, you are the parent, and they are to learn and to grow from your instruction and your teaching and your guidance, your wisdom. So to be able to just implement those boundaries and to set those boundaries and expectations are really key and important. Next is grace and forgiveness. This is really important too, okay? Grace and forgiveness is the glue that keeps all of the messy stuff, all of the flaws, all of the faults, all of the mistakes, all of those things from destroying the relationship. Right? So we all can admit that we make mistakes. We're not perfect. Well, either are our children. Clearly, we all know that. We see that. But we need to make sure that we're offering grace and forgiveness to our kids, that they do make mistakes. That's part of learning. That's part of growing. That's part of being a human being. And to show them the grace and the love that they deserve too, just like we would want someone to show for us when we make a mistake or our flaws are kind of more present than our strengths at a moment's notice, right? So we want to be able to impart forgiveness and grace on our kids, especially as they're learning and we're trying to teach them and guide them through life in different seasons and stages of their life. So, doing this, it requires listening with the goal of understanding, not just listening and saying, yeah, but you were wrong, or yeah, but, right? You want to just really let your child be heard. Again, think about when you're with your spouse, you want your spouse to hear you, to listen and try and understand. We want to do the same thing with our child. We want them to feel heard and understood, and to help build and rebuild the trust and to help just build them up, encourage them, and to let them know that even if they make a mistake, it doesn't destroy the relationship. Right? So to really just pour out the grace and forgiveness, obviously that has to be very well balanced with discipline. So of course there's all these details that could be further discussed, and I don't like to keep you guys here too long, so I just want to give you the overview of all these things. But keep in mind, there's always so much more to be discussed and detailed out with all of these topics. So the fifth one is gratitude. So obviously, living a life of gratitude. Last time we talked, I talked about complaining, and I, was trying to share with you that usually in a complaint there's a need, and when people complain, also they're not recognizing the things that they're grateful for and not being focused on things that are positive and good. So if we're trying to ask our children to be grateful and to be aware of what they're grateful for, we should also be demonstrating that, and that we should show an attitude of gratitude, and that we are able to look at what we have rather than what we don't have, and to parent in a way where it's like, okay, I'm grateful for this that you've done and how you're growing in this, or how you obey here. I'm grateful for you and in my child and this family and part of the family together. So these are things that we want to just model, having an attitude of gratitude. Okay, it's important to do that as well. Adaptability. So with adaptability, this really is talking about being flexible, right? To be able to be adapting to the ever-changing circumstances that can go on, especially having young kids, and then also older kids, right? School schedules, sports schedules, activity schedules, being sick, not doing well, getting in trouble, all of these things that we have to learn to adapt to. So obviously being rigid has its benefits, and having structure has its benefits, but we also need to be able to be adaptable, flexible, to be able to work around the ever-changing circumstances that can happen in a moment's notice. Yeah, that was easy for me to say. To be able to be flexible and to show our kids how to also be flexible, because life throws us lemons sometimes and curveballs, and we have to be ready to be able to respond well and in a healthy way. So it's important that, you know, we listen we listen to our children and their opinions, or what's going on, or maybe why they want to change something, or they want to stop doing something, or, you know, and to have a dialogue. You may not end up allowing them doing what they suggest that they want to do, but you give them, again, that respect and love them and show them that you can be flexible, you can hear, and maybe there's compromise or maybe there's not, but then you have that dialogue about it, that you have this discussion where it feels like there is some input and that you hear what they're saying, and then you have a decision together. So adaptability can go across the board on so many different levels, but really bottom line is just being flexible and not allowing structure and rigidity to take over all the time, if that is your natural bent. And then intentionality. Okay, so this is just demonstrated through emotional, physical, spiritual, mental commitment to grow with the family, to continue to be growing with your kids, to grow in their desires, their goals, their strengths, what they want to do, the things that they enjoy, things of that nature. So you want to be able to be intentional, that you, do maybe in the family meeting, if you're going to implement that in your family, like you talk about what are the goals for your family? Do you and your spouse talk about your goals for your kids? Like, is there intentionality in how you're raising them, in what your structure is throughout the week, or what is important for them to be involved in? Is that intentional? Do you have these values, these goals, the family rules, so to speak? You know how people put those things on their walls, like what they believe are just good values to live by, and what their family represents, or a motto, a family motto. Is how you parent and talk and discuss things with your kids, is it intentional in those types of goals, that you are leaving a legacy? You're trying to create a consistency in what's important in your family, and to be able to be intentional in everything that you do, whether it's the routine of family dinners and eating times and socializing and activities on the weekends and sports, and what your decisions are based on what your goals are for the family and your values. Being intentional, that is so important. So again, I hope this was helpful. I'm trying to make it as concise, as short as possible. I don't like to take up so much of your time. So again, the 7 principles are love, respect, boundaries, grace and forgiveness, gratitude, adaptability, and intentionality. I hope this was helpful for you. If you want to learn more, there's even a quiz that you can take to see how you're doing in these 7 principles. I can send you the link. I'll post it here, so you can go ahead and take that quiz if you're interested in finding out more. So I hope you all have a great night, and I will certainly talk to you guys next week. Thanks. Good night.